Did you know that even though Minnesota is famous for their many achievements, there are regions with no inhabitants? Minnesota is ranked among one of the best states with the highest economy, but these regions seem to be covered by bodies of water. Take a quick pause and hit the like and subscribe buttons as we take you through understanding Minnesota. Minnesota is a state in the upper Midwestern region of the United States. In terms of land area, it is the 12th largest with 87,000 square miles or 225,000 square kilometers, which is approximately 2.25% of the United States, but in terms of population, it is the 22nd with over 5.75 million residents. Minnesota is known for intensive agriculture, mining, forestry, and recreation. It is known as the land of 10,000 lakes because it has more than 14,000 bodies of fresh water, covering at least 10 acres each. The most inhabited metropolitan region of the state is the Minneapolis-Saint Paul, known as the Twin Cities, with more than 60%, about 3.7 million, of Minnesotans. This area is the state's main political, economic, and cultural hub. Other minor metropolitan and micropolitan statistical areas in the state include Duluth, Mankato, Moorhead, Rochester, and St. Cloud. The name Minnesota is gotten from Dakota language from a name of the river Minnesota River, which means cloudy water. Minnesota is inhabited by various indigenous peoples, with the French explorers and missionaries being the earliest Europeans to enter the region. Some parts of present Minnesota formed part of the vast French holding of Louisiana that was purchased by the United States in 1803. This explains how its official motto, L'Étoile du Nord, meaning the Star of the North, remains the only state motto in French. The state's growth was initially based on timber, agriculture, and railroad construction, as it attracted settlers and homesteaders from across the country. In the early 20th century, although farming remained prevalent, industrial development and the rise of manufacturing shifted the Minnesota population gradually from rural areas to cities. In the late 20th century, Minnesota's economy changed from traditional industries based on agriculture and resource extraction to services, finance, and healthcare. Consequently, it is one of the richest in terms of GDP and per capita income, and its standard of living and level of education being among the highest, as well as one of the best states in metrics in the United States. It has 11 federally recognized Native American reservations and has recently become more multicultural as a result of migration and immigration from Latin America, Asia, the Horn of Africa, and the Middle East, with its largest population of Somali Americans and second largest Hmong population. After Alaska, Minnesota is the next northernmost US state and northernmost contiguous state, as the isolated northwest angle in Lake of the Woods County is the only part of the 48 contiguous states north of the 49th parallel. It is among the US region known as the Upper Midwest and part of North America's Great Lakes region. Between Minnesota and Michigan is Lake Superior water border, while it shares a land and water border with Wisconsin to the east. Iowa is to the south, North Dakota and South Dakota are to the west, and the Canadian provinces of Ontario and Manitoba are to the north. Minnesota is also known to be home of some of the Earth's oldest rocks, gneisses that are about 3.6 billion years old, 80% as old as the planet. The Canadian Shield in northeast Minnesota is formed about 2.7 billion years ago from the remains of volcanic rock when basaltic lava poured out of cracks in the floor of the primordial ocean. While the Iron Range of northern Minnesota is from the roots of these volcanic mountains and the action of Precambrian seas. In more recent times, Minnesota's landscape was ravaged by massive ice sheets of about 1 kilometer in thickness. After the Wisconsin Glacial left 12,000 years ago, these glaciers covered all except the far southeast of Minnesota. The far southeast is known as the driftless zone for its absence of glacial drift and characterized by steep hills and streams that cut into the bedrock. Gigantic Lake Agassiz, formed in the northwest 13,000 years ago, formed from the glacial till left behind as the last glaciers retreated. Its flatbed is the fertile Red River Valley, and its outflow, Glacial River Warren, which carved the valley of the Minnesota River and the upper Mississippi downstream from Fort Snelling. Geologically, Minnesota as of recent is quiet, but experiences minor earthquakes infrequently. The high point Eagle Mountain at 2,300 feet or 700 meters, and the low point of 600 feet or 183 meters at the shore of Lake Superior of the state are only 13 miles or 21 kilometers away from each other. A triple watershed is formed in the rural Hibbing at the Minnesota's northeast, where two major drainage divides met. Participation can follow the Mississippi River south of the Gulf of Mexico, the St. Lawrence Seaway east of the Atlantic Ocean, or the Hudson Bay watershed to the Arctic Ocean. As we bring to your notice why Minnesota is called the land of 10,000 lakes, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. The nickname Land of 10,000 Lakes given to Minnesota is because of the presence of about 12,000 Minnesota lakes that are over 10 acres in size. Lake Superior is the largest and the deepest among them, with a size of 963,000 acres and depth of 1,300 feet. The state has 6,600 natural rivers and streams that cumulatively flow for 69,000 miles. The Mississippi River, which began its journey from its headwaters at Lake Itasca, crosses the state at various and joined by some other water bodies. It crosses the Iowa border 680 miles downstream and joined by the Minnesota River at Fort Snelling, by the St. Croix River near Hastings, by the Chippewa River at Wabasha, and by many smaller streams. The northwest part of the state has drained northward, leaving 10.6 million acres of wetlands within Minnesota's borders, and most of any state outside Alaska. The ecological provinces of Minnesota include Prairie Parkland, which is in the southwestern and western parts of the states, the eastern broadleaf forest, bigwoods, found in the southeast and extends in a narrowing strip to the state's northwestern part, where it changes into tallgrass aspen parkland, and a transitional forest between the northern boreal forest and the broadleaf forest to the south, the northern Laurentian mixed forest. These northern forests are a large wilderness of pine and spruce trees mixed with patchy stands of birch and poplar. Although much of these forests have undergone logging, with only a few patches of old-growth forest in areas such as Chippewa National Forest and the Superior National Forest, where the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness has some 400,000 acres of unlogged land regrowth, and replanting keep about a third of the state forested. In the southwestern and western parts, nearly all prairies and oak savannas have become fragmented by farming, grazing, logging, and suburban development. Although logging, farming and grazing led to loss of habitat for native animals such as the pine marten, elk, woodland caribou and bison, some others like white-tailed deer and bobcat thrive. Excluding Alaska, Minnesota has the nation's largest population of timber wolves and also supports healthy populations of black bears, moose and gophers. It also hosts migratory waterfowl such as geese and ducks, birds of prey and game birds such as grouse, pheasants and turkeys, and other several kinds of birds on the Mississippi Flyway. Minnesota has Hawk Ridge, which is one of the first birdwatching sites in North America. The climate of Minnesota is characterized by temperature extremes, with cold winters and hot summers. The lowest temperature, minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 51 degrees Celsius, was recorded on February 2nd, 1996 at Tower. And the highest temperature, 114 degrees Fahrenheit or 46 degrees Celsius, was recorded on July 6, 1936 at Moorhead. Meteorological events in the state include rain, snow, blizzards, thunderstorms, hail, derechos, tornadoes, and high-velocity straight-line winds, with the average annual precipitation ranging from 19 to 13 inches, and occurrence of droughts every 10 to 50 years. Minnesota's capital city is the Saint Paul, located in the state's east central along the banks of the Mississippi River. The capital city is adjacent to the most populous city, Minneapolis, and their suburbs make up what is known as the Twin Cities Metropolitan area. It is the country's 16th largest metropolitan area and takes up about 55% of the state's population. The remaining regions of the state are known as Greater Minnesota or Outstate Minnesota. Out of the 17 cities of the state, only 3 cities, Rochester, Duluth and St. Cloud, are outside the Twin Cities metropolitan area. Minnesota has a diversified racial demography, with 77.5% whites, 7% blacks, 5.3% Asians, and 6.1% of those identifying as 2 or more races. Also, its economy is diversified, because although once known as primarily a producer of raw materials, the economy has transformed to emphasize finished products and services. As of 2019, its per capita personal income was $58,000, thereby becoming the 13th highest in the nation. Its agricultural sector is a major part of the state's economy and ranking 6th in the nation in the value of products sold, as it is the nation's largest producer of sugar beets, sweet corn, and peas for processing, and farm-raised turkeys. Minnesota also produces corn and soybeans in a large scale and has the most food cooperatives per capita in the United States. Logging, pulpwood processing, and paper production, and forest products manufacturing is also strong in the state. It is also known for its soft ore mines, which produced a significant portion of the world's iron ore for more than a century. Minnesota is also famous for its theatre, dance, improvisation, puppetry, kids shows, visual art, and musicals, which they display in an annual celebration, Minnesota Fringe Festival, in Minneapolis. This festival is the country's largest non-juried performing arts. Other large annual festivals include the Saint Paul Winter Carnival, the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, Minneapolis' Aquatennial and Mill City Music Festival, Moon Dance Jam in Walker, the Judy Garland Festival in Grand Rapids, the Eel Pelt Festival in Leech Lake, and the We Fest in Detroit Lakes. Minnesotans have long life expectancies and high rates of health insurance and regular exercise, and as such are rated low in premature death, infant mortality, cardiovascular disease, and occupational fatalities, but have significant health disparities in minority populations. On October 1st, 2007, smoking in restaurants and bars in Minnesota was banned. Minnesota is recognised for many things, which also include its educational sector. According to the major annual survey in the state of 2015, Minneapolis was named the nation's most literate city. Also, in a 2013 study conducted by the National Center for Educational Statistics, comparing the performance of 8th grade students internationally in maths and science, Minnesota ranked 8th in the world and 3rd in the United States. Among everything, tourism became an important industry, especially in the Lake region. Industrial areas that were once focused on mining and timber have largely been changed into a vacation destination, as interests in hunting and fishing attracted a large urban audience. With all these achievements in Minnesota, the population of the country seems to cluster only in one region, as the northern and western regions of the state seem deserted by humans. This is so because they comprise majorly of forests and lakes, and also because of the extremes of their climates. Winters are quite long, snowy, and very cold in these regions. Also, their locations make them easily affected by natural disasters. Northern Minnesota is quite rural and isolated, known for its wide open branches, dense forests, waterfalls, and picturesque lighthouses. The western Minnesota is in the steep region of the state and is easily flooded by Lake Superior. It also suffers from natural disasters, including tornadoes, but is popular for tourism. Because of the geographic and climatic conditions of these regions, they lack features for agriculture and other things that made both the capital city and Minneapolis have much population. The growth and economic diversity of Minnesota will eventually provide a lasting solution to why their population is not evenly distributed. Stay tuned to our channel as we bring you more about this state and its likes.